Okay, hello guys. Today we are talking about solving the trigonometric equations, okay? So let's move to the first part of it. So here we can find there's an equation that sin x equals to 0.5. So maybe you're very clever. You find the idea that, oh, maybe we can use in the calculator to calculate x equals to sine the inverse function of 0.5, right? But in fact, remember that every time where you are using it to calculate the trigonometry where the sine function is a symmetrical graph. So you can just try to draw the graph like this way. So here's for sine function. So here it is, sine x. And then when equals to 0.5 like here, that means y value equals to 0.5. Okay, so we can say here we have two intercepts. Like this is one, this is the second intercept. Okay, and you can use the calculator to calculate the angle here is for 30 degree, right? But in fact, you can find there's another intercept between 0 to 360 degree, okay? So how to find this point? You can just use the symmetrical property. So the symmetrical line here is for 90 degrees. So if you let this point as x1, this point is x2. So the midpoint between x1 and x2 is 90 degree. So then you can calculate that is for 30 degree plus x2 equals to 180 degree. Okay, so x2 equals to 150 degree. Okay, so here we can say there are two solutions: x equals to 30 degree or x equals to 150 degree. Okay, so let's move into the another diagram right here. Okay, so maybe here you can find that there's sine function, tangent function, and cosine function. So we can just using the graph to find which functions is positive value. So it's very helpful for us to solving the trigonometric equations. Okay. So for example, like we are just solving the sine x equals to k. So every time, please remember to first draw the graph of the sine function. So here is for the sine function graph. And then you can just try to draw a horizontal line. Here is for k. Okay. So because here we have several intercepts, but we want to also find the domain of x because domain just restricted how many x we can choose, right? So if here we can only choose for about 0 to 360 degree. So maybe we can say the domain only contains for the blue region. Okay, so you can only choose for the two intercepts. But if once the domain changing to 0 degree to 540 degree, so now you can choose other two actual intercept. Okay, so there is a two other point. So they can also be choose. Okay. And let's just find some other working example like here, cosine x equals to negative 0.5. And here x is between 0 and 660 degree, okay? So first, you can just try to sketch a graph of cosine function, and then just try to draw a horizontal line of the negative 0.5, okay? So cosine function can be drawn like this way, okay? Okay, so this you can draw the cosine function, and here it is. So 0.5 here, sorry, negative 0.5 is a horizontal line right here in the graph, right? And then you can set here we have two intercepts. The first intercept is here, second intercept is here. Okay, so you can just try to use your calculator to calculate it. Okay, so when cosine x equals to 0.5, negative 0.5 degree, you can find this value is for pi over 2 plus pi over 3. That is for 5 pi over 6. Okay, so this value can be chosen as 5 pi over 6. But if you want to calculate another point like here, that is x2, right? So you can also draw the symmetrical line here. So because the point x1 and x2, they are symmetrical to the central line, x equals to 5 pi over 6. So you can just written down as x1 plus x2 over 2 equals to 5 pi over 6. So then you can say x1 plus x2 equals to 5 pi over 3. So once we choose, sorry, here is for pi. Sorry for that. Okay, that is for pi, and that is equals to 2 pi, right? So once x1 equals to 5 pi over 6, you can calculate x2, it equals to 2 pi minus 5 pi over 6. So it can be written down as 7 pi over 6, okay? That is the exact value here. So you can also put the value into your answers, like you can just let pi equals to 108 degree and calculate it, okay? That is it, okay? And also for some extension problems like here, for 2 times sine x squared minus sine x minus 1 equals to 1 equals to 0. So you can first try to factorizing the left equation. So here you can say you just consider sine x as u. So just let u equals to sine x. So left equation can be considered as 2u squared minus u minus 1 equals to 0, right? So we can say 2u squared can be divided into 2u and u, and negative 1 can be divided into negative 1 and 1. So it can be written down as 2u minus plus 1 times u minus 1 equals to 0. Okay? So that we have the sine x equals to negative 1/2 or sine x equals to 1. Okay? So you can just try to draw the sine x graph like here. Okay, so once sine x equals to negative 1/2, so it's a horizontal line right here. And when sine x equals to 1 is also the horizontal line right here. So also remember here to focus on the domain. Domain is from 0 to 360 degrees. So here is for the domain, right? So we have the first intercept that is for x equals to pi over 2, right? And also for this two intercept, you can just calculate this as 210 degree. And also the third point and the second point, they're symmetrical to the line x equals to, here is for 3 pi over 2, right? So you can say x2 plus x3 over 2 is 3 pi over 2. So you can just calculate for the value of x3, okay? So you'll find x2 equals to 210 degree and x3 equals to 330 degree, okay? That is it. And also, if you want to calculate for this equation, like tan 2x equals to 1, you can first try to let 2x equals to u, because we are not very familiar with tan 2x, but we are familiar with tan u, right? So we can say that is for tan u equals to 1. But also remember here, its domain also changed because x is from 0 to 360. So u is now from 0 to 720 degree, okay? So also you can just try to draw the time to use graph. So here it is, right? Here is for time to u, and each period is 180 degree. So here is for pi over 2. Here is for 3 pi over 2. Here is for 5 pi over 2. And here is for 7 pi over 2, right? You can just calculate the exact value of it. And you'll find that x finally have 4 intercepts. Just trying to draw a horizontal line to find it equals to 1, okay? That is how we calculate this problem. Not very difficult, right? Okay. Okay. So here's an exercise for you. So today we have not enough time for you to do so. So maybe next time we can just solve it together. And also you can leave your answers in the comment. Okay. Hope you can solve all the problems and understand the today's our full lesson. So see you next time. Bye.